"Back off, you racist pigs!" Amara Johnson's voice cut like a blade through the dim thrum of music inside the cafe bar. Heads turned. Drinks froze midair. And in that instant, everyone knew. This wasn't going to be an ordinary Friday night. The Cobalt Lounge, a small but lively cafe bar tucked into the heart of the city, was alive with the usual Friday rhythm. Exposed brick walls glowed under warm amber lights. The scent of roasted coffee mingled with sharp whiskey, laughter bouncing between the wooden beams overhead. Bartender Luis Alvarez polished a glass behind the counter, his eyes scanning the room like they always did, measured, cautious. The Johnson twins, Amara and Zuri, pushed through the door just after 9. They didn't need to announce themselves. Their presence carried a quiet gravity, identical on the outside. Tall, deep brown skin, coils of jet-black hair tied back in sleek buns, yet distinct in spirit. Amara walked like a spark about to catch flame. Bold red lipstick, a stride that dared anyone to challenge her. She was the fire. Zuri, on the other hand, moved with deliberate calm. Soft eyes, calm posture, yet the kind of stillness that spoke of storms beneath the surface. She was the water. For the sisters, this was supposed to be a simple night out, a celebration after a week of grueling work. They had slipped in, hoping for nothing more than a drink, a laugh, maybe some music. Instead, the moment they crossed the threshold, they drew eyes. Not just any eyes. 3 off-duty police officers sat huddled at the far end of the bar. Captain Doyle, his frame broad and heavy with arrogance, nursed a glass of whiskey like it was an extension of his fist. Next to him, Officer Briggs, wiry and sharp-jawed, tapped his badge against the wooden counter as if reminding the world who held power. And then there was Rookie Keller, barely out of his 20s, already drunk enough to stumble when he leaned forward. Their badges gleamed against their belts, pride stitched into metal. But it wasn't just pride. It was a shield, a weapon, a dare. "Would you look at that?" Doyle muttered, his voice carrying just enough to reach a nearby table. His eyes locked onto Amara first, traveling slowly, deliberately, like she was a piece of property on display. "Twins." Briggs leaned in, smirking. "And black. What are the odds?" "Double trouble." Keller laughed, a crude, ugly sound. "Nah, double dessert." He traced a clumsy hourglass in the air with his finger, his whiskey nearly spilling. "Man, I like Fridays." Zuri felt it first, the familiar coil of unease in her stomach. She kept walking, calm on the outside, but her hand brushed against her sister's wrist. A silent signal. "Stay sharp." Amara didn't need the warning. Her jaw had already tightened, her shoulders squared. She felt the heat rise in her chest, that dangerous fire that always seemed to spark when men like Doyle thought they had power. They took their seats at a small wooden table near the bar. Luis gave them a quick nod of recognition, almost apologetic, before turning back to polish another glass. The chatter in the room dulled just a little. Patrons noticed. Some leaned away, others stared. Then Doyle stood. His chair scraped loudly against the floorboards, echoing like a warning bell. His massive frame blocked half the light as he swaggered toward them. Whiskey still in hand, badge glinting proudly at his waist. He leaned down, close enough for Amara to catch the sour stench of alcohol on his breath. His bloodshot eyes narrowed. "Well now," Doyle smirked, voice dripping with mockery. Didn't expect the entertainment to walk in wearing matching outfits. "You two lost? Or just looking to play?" Amara didn't flinch. She raised her chin, her eyes locked onto his like twin daggers. Her voice came steady, cutting through the bar like a blade. "Back! Off!" The room went still. A glass clinked onto the bar and no one picked it back up. Luis froze, cloth in hand, jaw tightening. A woman near the door shifted uncomfortably, eyes flicking toward the exit. Briggs and Keller exchanged looks, grinning like jackals sensing blood. They rose slowly, stepping into place behind Doyle. Zuri's calm facade didn't waver, but every muscle in her body tensed, ready. She watched her sister, knowing the fire was about to ignite. The night was no longer ordinary. The game had begun. Before we continue, tell us in the comments, from which country are you watching this story right now? And what time is it for you? We'd love to know where our audience is tuning in from across the world. And if you're enjoying this gripping story, please make sure to subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us bring more powerful and eye-opening stories like this straight to you. You think your badge makes you God? The words hung in the air like gunpowder, and the cafe bar seemed to shrink. Every patron's heartbeat caught between fear and anticipation. Captain Doyle's smirk widened as Amara's warning echoed in his ears. He took another swig of whiskey, wiped his mouth with the back of his hand, and leaned even closer, his shadow stretching across the twins' table. "Well, sweetheart," he growled, "you've got a mouth on you. Let's see if it matches the attitude." His hand slammed down on the table with a force that made glasses tremble. A nearby patron flinched. Zuri's water spilled, droplets running across the wood like tiny cracks in fragile peace. Behind him, Officer Briggs circled with the slow patience of a predator. His bony fingers trailed along the back of Zuri's chair before gripping it hard, his knuckles white. He bent low, his breath hot on her ear. "Where you headed after this, princess?" Briggs sneered. "Because it looks like you've already got company." Zuri's lips stayed pressed, but her eyes darted sideways, sharp and calculating. Her calm exterior betrayed nothing, but the pressure in her chest tightened. Meanwhile, Rookie Keller, already flushed from too many shots, wobbled into position at Amara's side. His laugh was loud, forced, ugly. "Come on, Sarge," Keller slurred. "Don't scare 'em off too quick. Twins don't walk in every night. Let's enjoy the view." He shaped another crude gesture with his hands, earning a bark of laughter from Briggs. The tension rippled outward. Conversations died. Glasses stilled. The bartender Luis Alvarez froze mid-wipe, cloth clenched tight in his hand, eyes darting between the sisters and the officers. He had seen men like Doyle before. He knew how this script usually ended, and it wasn't pretty. Amara straightened in her chair, her arms folding across her chest, her eyes boring into Doyle like twin blades of steel. She wasn't going to flinch. "Not now. Move," she said flatly. Her tone was steady, but the spark in her eyes was unmistakable. Doyle chuckled low, the sound rumbling in his throat. He leaned so close their foreheads nearly touched. "Or what?" he whispered. "You gonna make me?" The words weren't just a threat, they were a challenge. And Doyle loved challenges. The bar seemed to hold its breath. A woman near the corner clutched her purse tighter. Two men near the back glanced at each other, silently debating whether to step in or keep their heads down. Most chose the latter. Briggs tightened his grip on Zuri's chair, dragging it back an inch. The scraping wood against tile sent a shiver down the room. Zuri's hands stayed folded neatly on the table, but her mind raced. Every fiber in her body screamed to react, to defend herself. But she waited. Timing was everything. Luis, from behind the bar, finally spoke, his voice shaking. "Hey, let's keep it civil, huh?" Doyle's head whipped around, his glare silencing the bartender instantly. "Stay out of this, Alvarez," he barked. "This ain't your fight." Then he turned back, his massive hand reaching slowly across the table toward Amara's drink. He tipped it over deliberately, liquid spreading across the wood, dripping onto the floor. The cafe bar went silent. The night had crossed a line, and everyone knew this was only the beginning. Captain Doyle's glass clattered as it tipped, amber liquid pooling across the table, soaking napkins, dripping onto the floorboards. He leaned back with a smug grin, as if he'd just declared ownership of the entire room. "See?" he muttered loudly, voice cutting through the silence. "They don't belong here. Not in my city. Not in my bar." Amara clenched her jaw, her fists pressed against her thighs, her knuckles whitening. She could feel Zuri's calm eyes on her, silently reminding her to hold back. Not yet, but Doyle wasn't finished. His meaty hand darted forward, grabbing the edge of Amara's chair. In one swift tug, he yanked her forward just enough to remind everyone of the power imbalance. His whiskey-stained breath washed over her. "You're coming with us," he declared, his tone full of arrogance. "Disorderly conduct? That's what they call it. And resisting? Oh, that'll just be extra fun." The word resisting echoed like a warning bell. Behind him, Briggs tightened his grip on Zuri's chair, yanking it so suddenly that her body jolted. Gasps rippled through the bar. His lips curled into a thin smile. Don't worry, sweetheart. We'll book you two together. Might even throw in a private ride downtown. Sounds nice, huh? Zuri's hands remained on the table, but her heart hammered in her chest. Her eyes flicked to her sister, calm but sharp. They both knew this wasn't a drunken bluff anymore. It was escalating into something dangerous. Rookie Keller, wobbling unsteadily, stumbled closer. He fumbled for his belt and with a clumsy flourish, unclipped the shiny badge that glinted under the cafe's dim light. He raised it high for the entire bar to see. You see this? Keller slurred, his voice cracking. We're the law. That means you do what we say. The sight of the badge made the tension snap. A few patrons whispered in panic. Others reached for their phones. One man near the corner raised his camera discreetly, capturing the scene. Another couple slipped quietly toward the exit, unwilling to get caught in the storm. Doyle straightened, his hand still gripping Amara's chair. His voice rose, booming through the bar. On your feet. Both of you. Now. You're under arrest. The words were final, heavy, like a gavel slamming. Luis Alvarez, the bartender, slammed his towel down on the counter. His voice trembled but carried conviction. This isn't right. They haven't done anything! Doyle snapped his head toward him, fury burning in his eyes. One more word, Alvarez, and you'll be next. You want your liquor license gone? Keep talking. Luis froze, his chest heaving. His fists tightened, but he stepped back, powerless. Amara finally rose from her seat, her movements slow, deliberate. Her arms remained folded, her gaze locked on Doyle. The room's silence swallowed the moment, broken only by the uneven hum of the jukebox in the corner. You don't want to do this, she said quietly. Her voice was low, almost calm, but the warning was there, buried beneath the stillness. Zuri stood too, her chair scraping softly against the floor. She didn't break eye contact with Briggs, whose smirk faltered for just a second, but Doyle was too far gone. He jerked his head toward Keller and Briggs. Cuff them! Now! The officers moved in, hands reaching, metal glinting. The bar erupted with whispers and the faint glow of phones recording from every angle. And in that suffocating moment, as cold fingers clamped onto Zuri's arm, the Johnson twins knew. The line had been crossed. The time for restraint was over. The air inside the cafe bar had turned suffocating. Glasses sat untouched on tables, and conversations had long been replaced by the tense silence of a crowd that didn't dare move. The three officers, drunk on both alcohol and power, tightened their hold on the twins. Officer Barnes shoved Naomi against the wall, his knuckles whitening as he pressed her arm back. She winced but didn't fight, her face stoic even under the assault. Across from her, Evelyn was struggling as Officer Daniels gripped her wrist, twisting it just enough to cause pain but not leave a mark, an intimidation tactic he'd used many times before. Behind them, Mercer stood like a wolf baring his teeth, his grin ugly and full of arrogance. See? No one's going to stop us, Mercer muttered under his breath, his words dripping with venom. You girls thought you could walk in here like you own the place? Newsflash, you don't. The bar patron shifted, restless. A man near the back clenched his fists, but his wife tugged at his arm, shaking her head in warning. Everyone knew how this story usually ended. Naomi's chest heaved, her breathing sharp as she glanced at her twin. Her eyes said what her lips didn't. Not yet. Hold it together. Evelyn nodded almost imperceptibly, her calm never faltering despite the storm swirling around them. Mercer leaned closer, his whiskey-soaked breath hot against Naomi's cheek. You think you're strong? Without your skin, you're nothing. Out here, we make the rules. It was the final straw. Naomi straightened, her shoulders squaring as if she were made of steel. Her voice was steady, low, and deliberate. You've made a mistake. The words cut through the tension like a blade. Barnes blinked, taken aback by the sudden change in her tone. Daniel snorted, shaking Evelyn's wrist harder, but Mercer leaned back with a scoff. Oh yeah? What mistake's that, sweetheart? Naomi's lips curved into the smallest of smirks, sharp enough to slice his arrogance in half. The kind of mistake that ends careers. Or worse, puts men like you in a cell. Before Mercer could respond, Naomi yanked her arm free with startling precision, twisting Barnes's wrist in one smooth, trained movement. Barnes let out a grunt of pain, his grip broken instantly. Evelyn followed suit, pulling her arm back and shoving Daniels a step away. The sudden burst of strength and control shocked the room. The three officers stumbled, caught off guard. "What the hell?" Mercer started, but Evelyn cut him off, her voice cold and commanding. "You wanted to know who we are?" She reached into her jacket pocket, pulling out a small leather wallet. With one practiced flick, the badge inside gleamed under the bar's dim lights. "Special Agent Evelyn Carter, FBI." The room erupted with gasps. Barnes staggered back, his face paling while Daniels froze completely. Mercer's jaw slackened, disbelief painting every line of his face. Naomi mirrored her sister's movement, flashing her own badge with equal authority. "Special Agent Naomi Carter, FBI, and you three just made the biggest mistake of your pathetic lives." The bar was silent, but the silence wasn't fear anymore. It was awe. Patrons whispered in shock, some reaching for their phones, others covering their mouths as they processed what had just unfolded. Mercer stumbled backward, but Naomi stepped forward, her voice venom-laced and firm. "Hands off us!" Right now. For the first time all night, it wasn't the officers who commanded the room, it was the twins. The bar was frozen in stunned silence. All eyes darted between the gleaming FBI badges and the faces of the officers who only moments earlier had strutted like untouchable predators. The balance of power had shifted in an instant, and the three men knew it. Naomi and Evelyn stood tall, their eyes sharp as blades. The fear that had been forced on them had vanished, replaced by unshakable authority. For once, Mercer had no words, his whiskey-fueled smirk gone, his bloodshot eyes wide with disbelief. You're lying," Daniels stammered, though his voice cracked under the weight of his doubt. "You can't be—" "Try us," Evelyn interrupted coldly. She reached into her back pocket and pulled out a sleek black phone. "One call. That's all it takes. And trust me, Internal Affairs doesn't look kindly on drunk, corrupt cops assaulting federal agents." Barnes swallowed hard, sweat rolling down his temple. The man who had been so eager to manhandle Naomi now looked like a schoolboy caught cheating on a test. Around them, the crowd buzzed with murmurs, phones flashing as patrons recorded the entire scene. Every word, every face, every action was now evidence. Carlos, the bartender who had watched silently for too long, finally stepped forward. His voice trembled, but it was steady enough to matter. "We all saw it. Every single one of us. They walked in here peaceful, and you were the threat." A round of agreement rippled through the room. A woman who had slipped out earlier returned with two uniformed officers from a nearby patrol unit. They stopped in their tracks when they saw the twins holding badges and the three off-duty cops looking like criminals cornered in their own mess. Naomi turned her head slowly, her eyes burning into Mercer. "For years, men like you thought you could use the badge as a shield. But tonight? The shield won't save you." Mercer tried to straighten up, his voice louder than before, as if volume could erase humiliation. "You don't know who you're messing with." "I've been on the force 20 years." "Exactly," Naomi snapped. 20 years too long. The on-duty officers, now fully aware of the unfolding storm, stepped in. "Agents, would you like us to take over from here?" one asked respectfully. Evelyn's gaze never left Mercer as she answered. "Yes, arrest them. All three. Disorderly conduct, harassment, attempted assault on federal agents. And make sure Internal Affairs is notified immediately." Gasps spread through the room again as the drunk cops were cuffed, their bravado collapsing into pathetic protests. Mercer struggled, yelling curses, but his voice was drowned out by the sound of phones capturing every second. Barnes lowered his head, defeated, while Daniels pleaded desperately, "It was just a joke, a misunderstanding." But no one was listening. As the officers dragged the disgraced men away, Evelyn turned back to the bar. Her voice carried over the chatter, strong and resolute. "To everyone who stood here tonight, remember this. Silence enables monsters. Speaking up takes their power away." The crowd erupted in applause, some patrons clapping with tears in their eyes. Carlos leaned across the counter, his voice warm with gratitude. "Thank you for standing up. For reminding us not all heroes wear capes." Naomi offered a faint smile. Heroes are just people who refuse to stay silent. And with that, the Carter twins walked out into the night air, leaving behind a bar full of witnesses who had seen something they'd never forget. The night predators in uniform were unmasked by the very justice they thought they controlled. What do you think of this story? If this moment shocked you, let us know in the comments from which country you're watching. Aktawas, and what time it is right now. We love seeing our global family connect. Don't forget to subscribe for more gripping, real-life-inspired stories. Your support helps us create more powerful content that exposes injustice and celebrates resilience. Stay tuned, because the next story will leave you even more speechless.